Hello everyone and welcome back to another screencast. This one is on trigonometry and it's all about labeling the sides. So we're not going to get straight into it. We're going to have little meals to build up your confidence, but trigonometry is nothing to worry about. This is the easiest part of trigonometry, so I'm sure that you'll do absolutely fine here. Okay, so what is trigonometry? Trigonometry is a branch of mathematics that studies relationships involving lengths and angles of triangles. All right, so things that we're going to work with on this is right angled triangles. Okay, so we're going to use trigonometry to help us work out angles and length of sides of right angled triangles. They always give you enough information in questions to use trigonometry. Sometimes you'll look at it and you'll go, oh, okay, well, you know, why can't I use Pythagoras here? So you can always use the Pythagoras theorem, but you can't use the Pythagoras theorem to work out the length of an angle, okay? So just remember that sometimes they look like a Pythagoras question and other times it looks like a trigonometry question. You need to know what you're looking for, but it's really, really simple and easy. So the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to name the sides of the triangle. And what we've got is the hypotenuse. Now, hopefully we already know what the hypotenuse is. If you've done other screencasts on Pythagoras theorem, hopefully you'll know that it's the longest side. And it's always, and this is where it does become a little bit confusing, it's always opposite the 90-degree angle. Okay, so please do not confuse the opposite angle to the hypotenuse. Okay, so hypotenuse is always the longest side. And if you use a bit of common sense, you'll do well. So if we look here, the hypotenuse is up here, okay, because it's the longest side. Now just imagine if we had this line starting from here to here, and we laid that flat down and we went flat down, it would end up over here somewhere, wouldn't it? And that makes it the longest side. And I know that saying this may confuse people, but it is directly opposite the 90-degree angle. It's not the opposite side, because we're going to go over that in a minute, but it is directly opposite the 90-degree angle. That makes it the hypotenuse, the longest side. Okay, so now we're going to go over the opposite. All right, we're going to miss the adjacent, because I always like to use that. In fact, let's do the adjacent now. Let's do the adjacent. Okay, so can we see the hypotenuse here? Okay, and can we see the angle? This angle here. There's no angle at the moment, but we can see that there is an angle there. Okay, and it's identified. There's no angle up here identified. Okay, now we're just talking about the angle that is there, and we can see. Can we see how it's connected to the hypotenuse and the other side? Okay, that is the adjacent. And I always like to think about this as, you know, you're either adjacent to your next door neighbor. My house is a semi-detached house, so I'm definitely adjacent to my next door neighbor, okay, because we are next to each other. Whereas if I was opposite, and if I was to draw a line out from this angle, the opposite side to the angle would be there. And we've just labeled up all three of the sides, okay? We've got the hypotenuse, the longest side. We've got the adjacent, which is connected to the angle, but is not the hypotenuse. And then we've got the opposite, which is directly opposite out from the angle that we might be looking for or that has been identified. So we've covered all of those. So I'd like you now to have a go at labeling up these two triangles and then come back and see if you've got the right answer. Okay, so let's give this a little bit of a go. I'm just going to see. No, there's nothing there for me to do. So let's go back to that. So let's do the hypotenuse for a start. So I can see directly across from the 90-degree angle will be the hypotenuse. I can label that up. Okay, I can see that this angle here is attached at this point and this point. So this is the hypotenuse. So this must be the adjacent side to the angle. And then directly across from the angle that we're looking for will be the opposite. And we're going to do it on the same thing. So here we go again. So we go right from there to there would be the hypotenuse. All right, so we've got connected here and connected there. That would be the adjacent. And then we're going to draw an arrow out, and that would be the opposite there. Okay, so hopefully you got all those correct. Now, if you've got all those correct, you are well on your way to being amazing at trigonometry, because we must know each of these sides to then progress further. Okay, so definitely on the next slide, I want you to give this a go. And if you don't get these right, don't worry about it, but you might want to go back and watch this video again. But pause the video here, try and work these out for yourself, and then see if you're right. Okay, so we've had a bit of time, so I'm just going to label them up right now. We've got the hypotenuse, and the reason why this hypotenuse is because it's the longest side. It's directly across from the 90-degree angle. We can see here that we've got this connecting here and this connecting here. So this must be the adjacent, and then I'm going to go straight out there, which is going to be the opposite. Let's do it again. Let's label up the hypotenuse. So we're straight across there is the hypotenuse, longer side. I've got my angle attached here and my angle attached there, so that must be the adjacent. And last but not least, we have straight across there, which must mean that is the opposite over there. Now, you can write the names out fully, but I often just go for, obviously, adjacent, hypotenuse, and I just put them for their first letter or their initial there, okay? So here goes the quiz now. Do the quiz, come back and see if you've got the right answers. Hopefully you do. If you don't, go back and watch the video again, because as I say, you'll really struggle with everything else unless you can label these sides. Okay. Alrighty, let's see how you've done. And there we go. So we've got our hypotenuse, our adjacent, and our opposite. Got the hypotenuse, the adjacent, and the opposite. The hypotenuse, the adjacent, and the opposite. The hypotenuse, the adjacent, and the opposite. And we can see there that every single time I've done it in that order. And I actually think that's really quite helpful. Always look for the hypotenuse first. Always look for that connecting adjacent side. And then last but not least, you've got the opposite. Hopefully you've done those and you've done really, really well. Please write a revision card on this. It will help you in class. And as always, look forward to seeing you back next time. And just remember, baby steps. Just get one thing right and then everything else becomes easy. If you don't get this part right, everything else becomes really difficult. Until next time.